So let's just start off introducing yourself, your name, your title, and some of the basic responsibilities that you have.
Sure, I'm Derek Boese. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer of the Flood Protection Authority East. We oversee the levee and flood wall system that protects the East Bank of the greater New Orleans area from both hurricane storm surge flooding and also Mississippi River flooding. Oversee a department of approximately 275 people, which includes 2 police departments and a professional engineering staff. Over half of the organization is the maintenance staff, which includes mechanics, tradesmen, grass cutters, heavy equipment operators, all of those sorts of backgrounds and skill sets, and then as well as general administrative staff of finance, HR, IT, and so on.
Gotcha. Did you by happen to get a chance to hit record on that?
I'm sorry, I did not.
That's okay.
I didn't know.
Just hit.
So I have to do it again?
No, I still have audio from video, so it's good. Let's just back up. I like to do different means because I'm going to send this to the group members.
Sure.
So yeah, but we're going to edit the videos and everything, so
Okay.
you don't have to worry about that. So during crisis management or emergencies, what do you consider to be the most important attribute in your leadership position?
So I think the biggest thing that as head of the organization that I can do during an emergency event, whatever the nature is, well, there's actually a variety of things. I think one is you have to be calm, confident, and stable. Everybody, whether they're inside the organization, is obviously, even though they know their job, is nervous. There's a lot going on. The general public, you have got to make sure that they see somebody who is confident and calm to help reassure them. And then I think communication, giving both the intent and guidance on the organization, as well as communicating with the public what's going on. And then at a certain point, you have to stand back and let your own subordinate leaders do their job and take care of things. Gotcha. I can't do everything myself.
Right. So what type of training does your personnel typically go through in order to, would you say, do their job effectively?
Well, so we have such a varied organization with a whole variety of folks. So I think it's very dependent on the group or the department that you're talking about.
Okay.
Police officers obviously have a very regimented training requirement. They're all post-certified by the state. We do offer them, I would say, other training as it becomes available, including an emphasis on leadership training. We are across the board within the organization rolling out, I would say, supervisory training, whether that's how you counsel an employee or effective communication, disciplinary actions. All of those things are important, and when you try to grow people from within to move from, let's say a heavy equipment operator up to a foreman or a supervisor, it's a difficult transition sometimes, and we want to give them the tools so that they're confident not only in the technical skills, but also in the supervisory skills.
Gotcha. That makes sense. From your experience you weren't here from Katrina.
I was
mentioned
not.
it. Oh man. Have you had any experience with any other natural disasters or emergencies at some point in your career?
I don't know if you count deploying to Iraq in the initial ground invasion in 2003 as a disaster zone, but definitely seen some stressful situations.
Gotcha. Let's see. A lot of these are Katrina.
That's okay, but you can, even if it's after. Like I said, I got here in July of 2006, and my background, just FYI. So I'm a civil engineer, undergraduate degree. I have a master's in engineering management, and I'm also a licensed attorney.
Okay.
So I was an Army Corps of Engineer officer for about 11 and a half years, decided to get out, moved down here. I worked for private firms, but my first job I was the chief of staff for the Hurricane Protection Office for the Corps of Engineers as a consultant. So I was embedded at the Corps on and off for about 5 years, doing post-Katrina work in the rebuilding and rehabilitation efforts.
Okay.
Stayed with the private sector doing different roles up until 2015 when I first became the executive director of the East Jefferson Levee District, and then during a reorganization about 2.5 years ago, the board sought to promote me up to the chief administrative officer.
Gotcha.
So while I wasn't here during Katrina, I have a lot of immediate post-Katrina or fairly immediate post-Katrina work experience.
Gotcha.
So if that helps modify your questions in any way, roll with it.
Okay, so post Katrina, do you know of any operational changes that were made to like the flood management system? Would that be something that
I can talk about that.
Okay.
So again, not being here during Katrina or prior, I don't have immediate knowledge of what it was like, but I can tell you the changes that were done by the Corps afterwards in terms of the physical construction of the system are night and day. I mean, the $14.7 billion program in the region, I mean, that ranged from levee heights, how levees were constructed, the armoring program to provide resiliency, which I know you're going to ask me about later.
Right.
Massive floodgates that did not exist at all before. You know, there may have been some smaller sector gates, but nothing to the scale of the surge barrier on the Industrial Canal, the Seabrook Gate, how those gates operate, inspections. You know, the program, I know that the program has dramatically changed from what was done pre-Katrina to what we do now. I mean, right now we currently do quarterly inspections in-house, report those to both the state and the Corps. We do a semi-annual to comply with the Corps. The Corps does an annual inspection on us, and then they also do periodics of every 5 years. So there is a significant, and I believe drastically greater level of emphasis on and oversight on what we do on frankly, a daily basis. The general public is much more interested, I think, than they were previously.
Definitely.
We get calls all the time when people see something that concerns them. And even if it's nothing to be alarmed about, we appreciate the feedback and the input that we get because we know people, it's their livelihood, it's their family, it's important.
Gotcha.
So whether it's the structure itself, whether it's the inspection procedures, some of the equipment used, I don't even know if it's, you know, night and day is sort of a euphemism, but it really is that different, in my opinion, on how things were done. And I can tell you the fact that my position is here as the head of the regional flood authority is a dramatic change from pre-Katrina. When you had, in my area, 3 completely independent levee districts based by parish, each with their own boards appointed by the governor. Now, post-Katrina, 1 regional board appointed by the governor. And because water, I think if you want a lesson learned from Katrina that people hear a lot, you know, but water doesn't care about political boundaries. And that was very obvious if you want to take the breach of the flood wall in the lower Ninth Ward. Right. You know, that was not only Orleans Parish, but that went into Araby and St. Bernard. 17th Street Canal, you know, but for the grace of God broke towards Orleans and not Jefferson. It certainly, you know, bad things could have happened and impacted both. So right now, you know, we've been operating as a regional entity. And even in the last couple of years, we've made it even more of a regional effort. So we now have completely consolidated maintenance departments, engineering, and so we can share resources, still keeping within our financial restrictions about how we collect millages, but just the fact that we're operating, we can share resources and keep better eyes across the board, I think raises the standards that are expected of us by the public, and frankly, we expect of ourselves.
Gotcha. Let's see. So how do you engage with the community during and after a storm to better recovery?
That was an interesting question because I guess when you say during a storm, our primary response or interaction with the community during a storm is obviously we're out there through the media channels or working with our parish counterparts, parish presidents, to get the message out. You know, we don't make decisions on evacuation. That is a local elected official and a state level decision. but we're in constant coordination because of the complexities required. When we close all of our gates, like we did during Barry, we cut off evacuation routes, we cut off railroads, we cut off the port to keep people safe, but all of those actions have to be heavily coordinated. So there's not so much a direct interaction with the public during an event, other than the coordination and communication about what are we doing to get the system safe.
Okay.
And then after an event, I think it's, again, when are we opening up things? Because that's just as important, because we have to get commerce flowing
Right.
As quickly as possible, assuming there were no damages like during Barry, which had no real impacts for
Right.
us. But we know it affected a lot of our stakeholders. I guess I want to say too, before an event, because I think part of our mission is public education and outreach. And so when you're talking during an event or after, in a sense, it's almost too late. It's never too late, but you have to lay the groundwork ahead of time for ensuring that people know what we do, ensuring that people are confident in the system and understand how it works. I think one of your questions actually is about disseminating information.
Right.
But dovetailing on that is we run public service announcements during storm season, leading up to storm season, and then during, and it peaks during the event. So that's one way. Community outreach is ongoing. I spoke to actually not far from here, the Old Kenner Civic Association earlier this week. They had some questions and wanted somebody to come in and talk to them. So we did that, and that's a fairly ongoing effort. We also have an education program in the school system in St. Bernard Parish as a pilot. We'd like to expand it to Orleans and Jefferson, but where in the middle school, we actually we hired a professional educator and environmental consultant and helped develop a full curriculum that could actually be dropped in if the